admit to reading a Laura Lee.
Well, one of the things I noticed in Marjorie's blog about it is that it celebrates the alpha man. And I sort of feel like we're commodities. I'm fine with that. But I understand the writing around with female audience. The serious question is there room to just deviate from the idealization of what an alpha male is? And represent an alpha male. Could it be done in a way that would appeal to both the female audience and the male audience? That's my hope.
At the end of the day, I mean, people just write what they want to write. I mean, like, you know, if the writer in this particular story feels like they need a guy who's going to be like pure 100% awesome alpha, then, you know, you just write that into the story. And so, I mean, I don't think also any of us are writing stories that are putting down men. I mean, I don't think we're like going into these stories and saying, you know, like men are just these beefcakes that with little brains, and you know, we're anyway. So, we're trying to write full, you know, like well-rounded characters, and yeah, I guess men are objectified to a certain extent. But you know what? I'm gonna answer this question very well. I'm gonna get like not like very PC.
Keep going.
I'll say that some of the biggest compliments that I've gotten on my male characters have nothing to do with quote-unquote their alphaness. I've had some people say, I love how, you know, your hero Bones is always honest with the heroine. Any male can aspire to honesty. Really, you can. And, you know, and loyalty. I mean, that's a very alpha characteristic, but then again, it's nothing that the average guy is capable of. So you can have an alpha character who's an ass, and, you know, a lot of women won't find him attractive, but a lot of things that women find most attractive in a man has nothing to do with how much he can bench press. So I'd say that there's a lot of things for the male reader that you can, you know, it's like a cheat sheet really into the female psyche in some ways, that you can look at, and not all of them have to do with the size of the shoulders or the size of other.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question. I don't think I have alpha males in my book. I really don't. I've got very interesting guys in my book, multifaceted. They make mistakes. They do good things. They do bad things. Really, I try very hard not to stereotype them.
I think in my book I played around with that a little bit. I have a male character that I guess you could consider an alpha male, and then I have another one that's kind of the exact opposite. And when I mentioned I love anime and manga, they have a concept, you know, called the shonen, which is, you know, the beautiful guy. And you know, in my story, I guess you could say that gives them sometimes more feminine attributes, whether it's the way they act or even the way you describe that they look, you know, like elegant or graceful. And you know, the main character in the book has to kind of choose between the two of them, but I thought that was something interesting to play around with. I think sometimes it just comes down to how much you're willing to play with certain ideas.
I come out of a romance background, and I have a lot of friends that wrote what you'd call a beta hero. They're not writing those series anymore. Women don't want to read those guys. What they seem to respond to is the alpha male who's also a bit of a tortured mess. Because only the right woman, yes, I'm looking at you too. Because only the right woman can fix that guy. And although in real life, I think we all know that that guy can't be fixed. Except through a divorce. So those guys, the beta heroes, do exist, but they're not nearly as plentiful. And there's a reason. The readers just don't respond to them the same way.
I think that, you know, you're always trying, as you say, always trying to create rounded characters. But in a sense, I'm writing about heroes and heroines, so there's a certain aspirational quality to my characters in the sense that they are bigger than normal. And so I think that some of the attributes get, you know, bigger. I'm gonna leave it right there.
You know, my favorite romance of all time is Georgette Hires Cotillion, who is definitely a beta hero, and he's so flippin' awesome. Anybody that's helping a couple elope and remembers toothbrushes, you know, he's awesome. I think that it's more important to have rounded characters. And my problem is when I write strong female leads, and all my characters mostly are strong female leads, trying to come up with somebody they're not going to steamroll over the top of. You have to have somebody who's got a backbone. Now that does not mean that they have to be alpha, you know, and it's okay. And I write werewolves with lots of alphas, but that's the way it goes. But you know, I don't think that it actually has to define the person. I think people are much more. They're much more to people than whether they're alpha or beta people. I think that that's an aspect of their personality and not the only thing that they have going for them.
I've heard it said that there are really only 2 plots, and that is a stranger comes to town and someone goes on a quest. And if you think about it, they're kind of the same thing. So pick one of those and go.
I was on a writer's blog recently, and they had a great way to do that, and they called it the once upon a time method, where you just say, once upon a time, such and such happened. And from there, you can sometimes get a whole story. And it actually worked for me recently, and it was a lot of fun to do. And I think sometimes it gives you the freedom to be more fantastical with things, maybe because you're saying once upon a time.
I would say don't be afraid to fill your paper with crap. Seriously. When I'm writing, I will often throw out the entire first chapter and the entire last chapter, because it's me getting my thoughts organized, and the story doesn't actually start until the 3rd chapter. But I need to do that 1st and 2nd chapter in order to find out where I'm going, and then be brave enough to throw it away and start when the problem starts. So don't be afraid to just throw stuff on the paper and realize that if you do get this published, you're going to be rewriting it and rewriting it and rewriting it anyway. So just put it down there and use it as a jumping off point, and good luck with it.
I would second the don't be afraid to write a bad first draft. There are some times, and I have multiple books into this, when I will look at chapter 1 and feel paralyzing fear for like a week, and there will be no words. As my long-suffering editors think, yes, I know. Anyway, so yeah, if you haven't had your characters in your head interact yet, do a once upon a time, do a person, place, problem, get them interacting, because that chemistry between your characters can probably take care of most, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of your fear of what you're going to write next. Nothing gets me writing faster than putting the 2 characters who are meant to be together in the same scene. So get them there however you need to get them there. And if you have to go back and rewrite 100 times, that's normal. And if you have to go back and delete 10 chapters, that's normal too. But fill that blank page.
I second that. I mean, I write by the seat of my pants. Like, I don't outline or anything like that, but I do have the characters in mind. And so I put these characters, and this is not really answering your question, but it's also sort of what Patty said too. It's what's the problem? You know, what's going on right now that is just, it's like the most horrible thing ever, you know, that happened to this person. And then it just makes it worse. But, that was nice. But so but really, you know, I try to start from that first line. You know, from that first line, what is it that I can jump off from in this first line that will carry me through the rest of this chapter and into these characters? And then again, it's chemistry, and it's just building and building and building, which is horrible advice for you, because I know it's hard, because there's nothing like concrete to give you, but it's all these different methods and process that you can just sort of throw yourself into an experiment with and see what comes out, you know, on top.
In many ways, I've had some of these characters, I'm 27, some of these characters have been in my head since I was 12, and it's like, you say put them in the horrible position, it's like, I don't want to do that to him. He's perfect.
No, you have to. You have to.
The way you write good books is you take somebody you really, really like and you destroy them. And that's it's true.
You will learn to enjoy it.
Thank you so much.
Next person who wants to, were you waiting? All right, somebody, all right, you. And then, real quick, Marjorie, you should answer this one first because you're going to need to leave right after this.
Alright, speaking about writing, organizing thoughts, are there any software tools you all use? And secondly, with EPUB being easier than ever to make, we recommend that with authors self-publish, or should they still kind of go to shops and look around?
First part of your question, I just use Microsoft Word and a pad of paper. I mean, nothing fancy. And as to the second part of your question, that really depends on the individual. You know, for me, at that, what am I talking about? At the time I started, the EPUBs weren't really a thing. So, you know, I just did the old-fashioned way, 3 chapters, you know, synopsis, sending it to, you know, cold send, you know, into editors and agents. Nowadays, I really don't know. I think my sense of pride would probably, I'd probably want to try to go the traditional route first, just in case, just to see, because I think it's a good exercise in rejection, and trying to, you know, push yourself to see, you know, just how far you can go. But there's also nothing wrong with, you know, there are great stories being published, you know, via the EPUBs, and so it really depends on your personal situation.
Yeah, I just use Microsoft Word as well and jot down an outline that probably is incomprehensible to anyone but me on a piece of paper. And the only thing I really use a program for is to check how many words. It has a little tools, word count, and it'll tell me how many I've written today. Some people do have programs, and I've heard some authors swear by them, so I would say whatever works for you, whatever gets you more productive, that's the program you should use. As far as EPUBs, like Marjorie, there wasn't really that. She has another panel, she's not in It depends, I think, on why you would want to do it. I've heard some aspiring authors say that they want to do it because it's easier. I know self-published authors. It's not easier. I've self-published a couple things on the side. You do just as much work as you would do anything else. So if you think you're going to self-publish it because it's the faster, easier route, there are a lot of self-pub authors who want to give you a wake-up call. So decide why you want to do it. If you want to be your own entrepreneur and you have all this whole set of business plans, maybe that's for you. But if you think it's easier, it's not. And also, there's a lot of stories. When I finished my first novel, I thought it was perfect. 20 threads later, I realized it was crap. Sometimes people get excited and they put stuff out there that really needed a good overhaul and didn't get it. So just, you know, writer beware. It's your story. No one will know it, love it, or know it as much as you do. Whatever's best for your story. Maybe not whatever's best for your movie.
You've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay, I use Microsoft Word. And when I plot, I've got a little Excel spreadsheet that I use to keep track of where characters are, that I developed myself. It's just a self-help tool. You find what works for you. I've got a clipboard and a pad of paper when I plot. As far as ebooks versus traditional publishing, if you are very, very good at marketing and you can spend 4 to 6 hours a day pushing your book, and you have a friend who really, really knows what they're doing and can edit it, and if you have another friend who's really, really good at plotting and can pick the holes apart in your novel, and you feel comfortable doing that, then I would say go for it and do e-publishing. If you're chicken like me, and you have a story and you're not really good at marketing, you're not good at spelling, and you're not good at grammar, and you have a very small friend list as far as who you trust to look at your work, I'd say try the traditional route. But there is no right or wrong way. You just find what works for you.
I have nothing to add, actually. They've pretty much said it all, so.
I'm a Mac person, so I'm quite like Scrivener.
The problem with the ebook is that I think that the time to make big money as a new writer in the ebook revolution is gone. I think that it hit and it was gone within a couple of months. Because the problem with it is most people's first books, my first book, was not ready for prime time. And people put it out there, and people and the readers went out and they looked at the ebooks and they downloaded 100 ebooks and found one that they could get all the way through. And I just don't think, I think it's wonderful for people who have a large backlist. Christine Catherine Rush and Dean Wesley Smith, who are a married pair who have been editors and writers and written under a million different pseudonyms, make a lot of money on their backlist publishing and e-publishing. There's a myth that goes along with the myth that editors are out to keep writers from publishing and reaching the reading public, and that is that editors don't do anything for you. And believe me, as a reader, editors do an awful lot for you. Slush pile reading is not for the faint of heart. And having an editor go through and pick out the books that could be really good stories, it really helps. And as a writer, having editors go through and say, you know, the giant shape-changing spider, that is not a random example, folks. The giant shape-changing spider just really isn't going to work right here. And that was my second book too. That wasn't the first book. That was too bad. So I think that it's a wonderful exercise, but I'm afraid that you will get yourself locked into bad habits. And if you do get a readership, you may ruin your name.